Welcome to Feel Better, Live Better. I'm your host, Stephanie Bridges, and each week we talk about simple ways to fuel your body, free your mind, and create the energy and confidence you need to live well. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to Feel Better, Live Better. I am so glad that you're here. Our last episode, we talked about emotional eating and the shame that so often follows it. And I wanted to start there because for so many women, that cycle of eating and then judging ourselves and then promising to have more willpower next time, it feels endless. So today I want to dig into that word willpower because it's the thing we're told over and over again is the answer. If we could just get stronger, if we could push through, if we could just be more disciplined, then we'd finally stick to the plan. But what if willpower isn't really the problem? What if it was never meant to be the solution at all? That's what we're exploring in this episode. If willpower isn't the answer, what actually is? So let's start with this. We don't act because of willpower or lack of discipline. We act because of our feelings. So think about the last time you grabbed a snack late at night. Was it because you truly needed more calories or because you felt bored and restless or maybe even sad or lonely? Or think about scrolling on your phone for an hour when you planned to get something done. It wasn't because you didn't know that you weren't doing it. You knew that there were things that you should be getting done. But in that moment, the feeling of stress or overwhelm made your brain look for relief, and the phone gave you that quick escape. Our actions are driven by emotions, by what we're feeling in the moment. Stress and boredom, loneliness, anxiety, those emotions are uncomfortable, and our brain doesn't like to feel uncomfortable. So this is where something that I call buffering comes in. Buffering is when we use something outside of us, like food or scrolling or shopping, to cover over or numb out or buffer the feeling. And it works for a moment. You eat that cookie and the anxiety is a little quieter. You buy something online and that sadness lifts just enough. You scroll through Instagram and suddenly you don't feel as bored anymore. But even though you're distracted in that moment, the emotion underneath is still there. The cookie, the thing you bought, the scrolling didn't solve what was going on. And most likely now you've added something new on top. Guilt, wasted time, money spent, or that heavy feeling of, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? So it's not discipline that's missing. It's just that you're human. And like all humans, your brain wants to avoid feeling uncomfortable. Nothing has gone wrong here. But here's a shift that we want to think about. Instead of shaming yourself for it, you can learn to allow those feelings to be there without trying to run from them. When you stop making discomfort mean something's wrong with you, and you just get to let it be part of your experience, then everything opens up. And that's when change starts to feel possible. Not because you forced yourself, but because you stopped fighting the feelings and started working with them. So that leads us to go just a little bit deeper. Our brains are wired to keep us alive, not to make us happy or thin or successful. The wiring is very simple. It's called the motivational triad. And this means that your brain's top 3 priorities are to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. That's it. That's the built-in program running in the background all the time. So if you've ever wondered, why do I keep reaching for the easiest, fastest comfort even when I know better? This is why. Your brain's doing exactly what it was designed to do. So let me give you a few examples. You come home stressed and your brain says, I need something good right now. So food or Netflix, scrolling on your phone, that just feels like, oh, this feels so much better than the stress that I just left. Or you think about going to the gym, but your brain says, oh, that's going to be painful. How about we don't do that today? You sit down to work on something that might be kind of hard, or you have to put a lot of effort into, and your brain says, that's going to take too much of my bandwidth. It's going to take too much effort. Let's just see what's on Instagram. Let's see who's on Facebook. Let's watch a show. So this wiring is super helpful in a survival sense. If you were living in the wild, you'd want your brain to tell you to eat whatever food was available, to run away from danger, and to rest whenever possible. So that's how humans survived. But in the world that we live in now, where pleasure is available instantly in the form of sugar and scrolling and shopping and sometimes even overworking for some people, this wiring backfires. It creates that all or nothing cycle so many of us are stuck in, because what happens is you resist with willpower for a little while. You can white knuckle it for a bit, but eventually your brain's wiring is going to win out. You give in and then you feel bad and you promise that you'll try harder. So it feels like a failure, but it's just your biology coming through. So the good news is that once you understand this triad, you can stop making it mean something about you. You can stop calling yourself weak or lazy. Nothing has gone wrong. Your brain is doing what it thinks is right. The key is learning to work with your brain instead of against it. And that means setting yourself up with tools and awareness so you don't have to rely on white knuckling and willpower. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. So there's another piece most people don't realize, and that's your gut and your brain are in constant conversation. Most of the serotonin in your body, that chemical that helps you feel calm and balanced and able to cope, is actually produced in your gut, about 90% of it. So when your gut is healthy and balanced, your brain has the steady support it needs to keep your mood stable and your cravings more manageable. But when your gut is struggling, maybe because of stress or processed food, lack of sleep, inflammation, those signals don't come through quite as clearly. And instead of feeling calm, your brain often interprets that disruption as anxiety or irritability, that restlessness, that I need something right now, or I don't know what's wrong feeling. And it's not a lack of discipline, it's your brain responding to messages that your body is sending. So think about it this way. Your gut is like the roots of a tree, and your brain is like the branches. If the roots are nourished, the whole tree thrives. If the roots are weak, the branches are going to struggle too. And that is one reason that willpower feels impossible at times. You're not just pushing against a thought, you're pushing against your own biology. Your brain is already wired to seek comfort. And if your gut is firing off stress signals, those urges get even louder. So the good news is that you can shift your thoughts. You can also support your gut. so the whole system calms down and you don't have to overhaul your whole life to do it. Small, consistent shifts can make a huge difference. Adding protein and fiber to your meals so that your blood sugar stays steady. Drinking enough water to keep your digestion and your energy balanced and stay hydrated. Choosing more whole food and greens so that you're feeding that microbiome. And for some people, using targeted tools that help reduce inflammation and reset the gut are going to be key. I have tools that you can use, so if you want to reach out to me and find out what those are, I would be happy to help you with that. So when you do these things, like quieting down that background noise, your brain isn't being flooded with constant danger messages, so you have more space to pause and think and choose instead of reacting out of urgency. That's the part that a lot of people miss. They think the problem is just them or their willpower, their lack of willpower. But often it's their body and mind being out of sync. When you support both, everything else gets easier. So if willpower isn't the answer, what is? The answer is self-trust. Willpower is like yanking yourself through the day with sheer force, and that only lasts for just so long. But self-trust is what keeps you moving, even when motivation fades. Think about a friend that you trust. If she tells you she's going to show up at a lunch date, you don't doubt that she'll be there. You just know that she's going to show up. Now imagine if you had that same kind of trust with yourself. If you said, I'm going to do this one thing today, and you knew deep down that you would follow through, that's pretty powerful. Self-trust doesn't come from suddenly getting everything right. It comes from the little choices that you follow through on, the ones that are actually doable. The simple promise kept to yourself is so much more powerful than trying to overhaul your whole life at once. So it might be as simple as choosing one nourishing breakfast this week, not I'm going to eat this every day and I'm going to be perfect about it. Just choosing that one meal that can be something that's more nourishing for you. Pausing before reacting to something that your child or your spouse has said. Pausing before you hit send on an email and asking, is this really how I want this to come across? That pause is just that one little switch that you can make. Noticing a thought and instead of being angry with yourself or agreeing with yourself that you're a mess, that you're a hot mess, that you can't ever get anything right, just saying, I hear you, instead of spiraling in that those thoughts that can bring you down further, just stopping and noticing that thought and saying, wow, I hear what you're saying, and giving some compassion to yourself. So each time that you follow through, you send yourself a message that, hey, I can count on me to do the things that I say I'm going to do. And, if you set a goal or there's something that you want to try and do, if you're able to do it 80% of the time, then that shows that it's a good, reachable goal for you. If you're not able to get it 80% of the time, then I want you to break that goal down into smaller pieces, something smaller and more doable. Maybe I'll have to do a whole podcast on that sometime. That'll be on my radar. Okay, so some of you might already be hearing the voice in your head saying, but I always quit, or I never follow through. And that's where the subconscious comes in. Those old stories are running underneath, shaping how you see yourself. And the amazing part of that is that those can be released and rewritten. You know that that's part of what I do, so you don't have to keep carrying them. The more you practice small follow through steps and clear out those old beliefs, the more your identity is going to shift. You stop being the person who always quits and start being the person who trusts yourself. And once that shift happens, you don't need to fight with willpower anymore. Okay, so let's do some SRT, some subconscious release technique on the belief, I always quit. So I'll ask you to take a deep breath in. You'll hold your breath and repeat the clearing phrase silently in your mind, and then you'll breathe out. Okay, so deep breath in. I release all frustration with, I always quit. And then you breathe out. Deep breath in. I release all disappointment with, I always quit. Deep breath in. I release all shame with, I always quit. Deep breath in. I release all pain with, I always quit. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to certainty with, I always quit. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to fulfillment with, I always quit. And deep breath in. I release all blocks to trust with, I always quit. And deep breath in and out. Okay, we're going to do some fill-ups now so we can fill in that space. So you're going to do the same thing. Deep breath in. I'm so happy and grateful. I am becoming the kind of person who follows through on what matters to me. Deep breath in. I'm so happy and grateful. I trust myself to keep showing up, even in small ways, and I'm building consistency I can count on. Okay, deep breath in and out. All right, so let me give you something simple to practice this week. Pick one small promise to yourself, something you know that you can keep and follow through on. It might be drinking a glass of water in the morning or writing down one thing at night. The size of the goal doesn't matter. And you might think, oh, this is so silly, this won't even make a difference. But what matters is proving to yourself, I can count on me and I do what I say I'm going to do. So just remember that it's not about getting it all right now, overnight, this minute. It's about learning how to notice your emotions and support your body and build that steady trust with yourself. That's what's going to create lasting change for you. So I want to thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope that this helps you see why willpower was never the problem and why your emotions and your gut and your self-trust are the real keys to feeling better and living better. And if you want more support with this work, head over to my website, livingthebestyou.com. I've got some free resources there, ways that you can work with me. I would love to support you. You don't have to do this alone. And so until next time, keep practicing those small promises and remember you really can feel better and live better. Thanks for joining me today on Feel Better, Live Better. If you're ready to take the next step, be sure to go to my website, livingthebestyou.com. You'll find free resources and the support you need to accomplish your goals. And if this podcast connects some dots for you, please follow and share with a friend. Until next time, remember, when you feel better, you really do live better.